Hello, and welcome to the Data Engineering Podcast, the show about modern data management. Legacy CDPs charge you a premium to keep your data in a black box. RudderStack builds your CDP on top of your data warehouse, giving you a more secure and cost-effective solution. Plus, it gives you more technical controls, so you can fully unlock the power of your customer data. Visit dataengineeringpodcast.com/RudderStack today to take control of your customer data. Your host is Tobias Macey, and today I'm interviewing Kevin Niparko and Hanhan Wang about Segment's new Unify product for building and syncing comprehensive customer profiles across your data systems. So, Kevin, can you start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Tobias, thank you so much for having us on. I actually started as Segment's first data analyst back in 2015. So really helping our early team figure out our business model, inform our product direction, and go-to-market strategy through our own data. But one of the things that I learned really quickly is that being the lone data analyst at an analytics company means that I often was the first internal customer, essentially this dog eating the dog food every day, constantly querying our data warehouse, consuming it in various tools. And so I think that vantage point gave me a good perspective that to really be able to answer some of the toughest questions that our business was facing, it required really high quality customer data to be able to understand our customer base, what they needed, and how we could better help them. We'll hand it over to Hanhan to share a little bit more about herself.
Hey, I'm Hanhan. I'm so excited to be here today. So before Segment, I spent 4 years at Amazon as a PM on machine learning and AI products. I ran the Alexa smart lighting business, helping people turn on and off their lights from the comfort of their couch. And I also worked on a new to world kind of controversial product called Tone, which analyzes how you're coming off to others based on the vocal biomarkers in your voice stream. And at Amazon, I really saw the power that good data can bring to a business. It's such a huge competitive advantage. And as a PM at Amazon, I could just focus on building these cool new ML experiences. It was just always assumed the underlying data was in the right place and in the right format. So from there, I came to Segment. And what's super motivating to me is that we're democratizing customer data access and these insights so that companies of any size, not just these big tech behemoths, can make these truly data-driven decisions that they need to compete.
And so going back to you, Kevin, do you remember how you first got started working in data?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had done a startup earlier, and that was sort of the first foray. It was a mobile social network, helping bring together friends around common shared interest. And so there was a lot of customer data that we could have had at our fingertips. We ultimately failed to find product market fit. And, I reflect a lot on that experience as really not following the data that we had at our fingertips and giving us signal as to whether we were on the right path. And so it was incredible learning from that perspective of how do you really listen to your customers, both qualitatively and quantitatively, to be able to drive product decisions that are going to lead to a better product at the end of the day.
And Hanhan, do you remember how you got started in data?
I think data is just very much in the fabric of being a PM at Amazon. So you're sending weekly business metrics and analyzing them and presenting them to the team and execs every week, right? You have to keep a pulse of what's going on. When we launch products, like everything is measured, everything is metriced. The dev teams focus a lot on it. It's part of the operational checklist. It's part of the decision making. And so I don't know if there's a start. It's just kind of the environment of being at a place that is very data driven and metrics oriented.
And so in terms of the Segment Unify project, which is what we're talking about today, before we get too far into that, can you just give a bit of an overview for folks who aren't familiar what Segment is, and maybe a little bit about kind of its role in the overall data ecosystem of a given organization?
So yeah, there's this really long and exciting history around customer data platforms that I'm sure we'll get into later in this conversation. But last month we launched Segment Unify, which is providing consumer grade identity resolution. And we think this is the next big breakthrough around CDPs. An easy way to think about what a CDP is and where it fits into an organization is if you were running a business before the internet, you'd get to know all of your customers personally, right? They'd come into your store, you'd develop this relationship with them, they'd tell you about their lives, the things that they were into, their favorite style, whether something seemed too cheap or too expensive, whether they liked the pink pants or the green overalls. As businesses have moved online, that same interaction continues to happen, but now it's happening in the digital space. It's happening thousands of times per second across mobile apps and websites and CRMs and marketing automation and contact center systems, on and on, right? There are so many different tools which are informing that customer's journey. And on the other side, there's this growing ecosystem of ways in which you can put that data to work, from advertising and marketing to texting, on-site personalization, even now fine-tuning AI large language models. And so the uses around customer data are large and continuing to grow. And one of the things that we've realized is that collecting this data for our customers, it's this hard engineering challenge, and it requires a lot of advanced infrastructure to get it right. It's not like this really exciting infrastructure that engineers show up excited to build. It's a lot of boring stuff, a lot of the plumbing behind the scenes to get everything to work well together. And so that's really where CDP sits within an organization, a set of APIs and infrastructure to get data from wherever it's generated to wherever it needs to go.
And so in terms of the Unify product, can you describe what that is and some of the story behind how it came to be and the role that it plays in the overall Segment product suite?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we've learned along the way from our customers is it's not just enough to get raw data from one place to another. There are a lot of hard problems to make this raw data usable and actionable. So on top of that raw data, with Unify, we're providing identity resolution capabilities to turn the raw data into golden profiles. Golden profiles are essentially the most up-to-date, trusted digital record of who your users are and where they are in their journey with your business. It's not necessarily a unique concept in the data world, but there are a few things that we're doing differently with Segment Unify. The first is that these golden profiles are complete, which means it's the collective understanding around who your users are across different touch points. We've extended this to include data from the data warehouse with reverse ETL. So the insights that data science teams and data engineering teams are generating can now easily hydrate that profile. The second piece that's unique here is that these profiles are portable, meaning that they can sync across hundreds of different tools that can be powered by this centralized understanding. And then the third is that they're real-time and always up to date, meaning that they represent the latest state of a user and where they are in their journey. The stat continues to blow my mind. We're resolving 250,000 data points to profiles every second and executing over 50,000 incredibly complex profile attribute computations in seconds of receiving new digital signals. So that gives you a flavor of the size and scale and real-time performance of the system that we were building.
And as far as the kind of golden profile aspect, as you mentioned, Unify is serving the purpose of bringing together these different data sources and combining them into this one cohesive view of the customer through their profile. And in terms of that profile object, what are some of the categories of attributes that need to be managed, and maybe some of the different sources that those attributes or categories of attributes might come from in a given organization?
Yeah, a simple way to think about this is who is the user and how are they interacting with your business? So who is your user? Think about these as traits and identifiers. Traits can break down into a few different categories. You can have raw traits like the user's name or what billing plan they're on. There's computed traits, so things like total lifetime orders or average order size. There's also predictive traits, so these are inferences about what a user is likely to do next, so things like likelihood to purchase or churn prediction. There's an advanced identity graph that we are helping our customers build under the hood, so think about how a user ID and an email and a device ID all link together in this representation of who a user is across touch points. And then there are events. So this is, how is this user interacting with your business? So think about a common e-commerce funnel. Somebody's viewing a product, they've added it to the cart, and then they've ultimately checked out. All of these are events and digital interactions that are happening with your customers. There's also this need to append additional context to the profile. So things like, what audiences and promotions does a user qualify for, or where they fall in various marketing journeys that are being executed by marketing teams. I think there's this big aha moment that many data teams have as they mature with their customer data infrastructure, which is golden profiles aren't this static users table. It's really this dynamic and strategic asset that requires significant investment to get right.
And in terms of that investment and the evolution of that profile object, what are some of the kind of technical and organizational challenges that come about in terms of understanding what are the actual semantic definitions of some of these attributes to determine how they're computed or aggregated? What are some of the ways that mutation of that profile object can have downstream ramifications on the overall data suite of the organization? Just some of those kind of complexities that come about in the overall life cycle of a given customer profile and the way that it is defined in the bounds of a business.
It's a great question. And I think there are sort of two hard problems that we sought to solve with Segment Unify. So the first was around this concept of identity resolution, which is, how do you know who your users are across touch points? We can walk through an example here to give you a flavor of why this is such a hard problem. Let's say a customer purchases a product in store and they provide their email address at checkout. Later, they call or text in to support to get help installing this product. So you have their phone number. And then once the product is installed, they sign up for the service and ultimately get a user ID. Now, imagine the same interaction is happening in different sequences with different identifiers, happening potentially hundreds or thousands of times per second. This is the hard problem of resolving identity at scale in real time. And there are particularly hard parts that we've uncovered in this journey. So things like anonymous to known. How do you take somebody who's top of funnel exploring on a website down to downstream purchase behavior, as well as shared identifier detection. So identifiers can have varying levels of uniqueness. Phone numbers can be shared among a family. Devices can be shared among many individuals, right? Each identifier has a different level of uniqueness that needs to be baked into your identity resolution logic. So that's sort of big bucket number one around some of the challenges that businesses have in implementing identity resolution strategies. The second hard problem, which is more thematic across the industry and very top of mind for data engineers and data architects, is this concept of real-time streaming architecture and how it relates to data at rest sitting in a data warehouse. You hear a lot about customer 360 and single source of truth, or this one data store that's going to rule them all. And I think for most businesses, what we've realized is that this is ultimately a myth. The reality of customer data infrastructure is it's this tapestry of databases and Kafka streams and data lakes and SaaS tools and data silos, each which hold this subset of who your users are and how you can better serve them. And so there's this common challenge that businesses face as they mature on their data infrastructure, which is bringing real-time data streams alongside data at rest sitting in a data warehouse. And so that's where our new reverse ETL capabilities come in that we've introduced in conjunction with Segment Unify, which is the ability to query data that's sitting in the data warehouse and bring it onto the golden profile without having to spin up a ton of advanced ETL and data infrastructure. So our systems are operating at real time, around 2.5 million events per second, but we're also providing data engineers and data scientists the ability to tap into the rich data that sits in their data warehouse and join it onto their golden profile that can be used across the stack.
Yeah, I think when we started pitching this, we called it each destination was a data island. So every destination that you send your profile to in order to activate your customer information, like amplitude, breeze, iterable, asks you to send kind of this full fire hose of raw data and then infer a profile. And each of these like down engagement apps also need like a specific set of fields and IDs in order to drive the right ROI from their personalization features. So I think to this detriment, like customers wanted a way to they're looking for ways to centralize that. They're looking for ways for the profiles to really be the full view and then to pick out parts of the profile and easily send exactly the fields that they need in order to drive the highest ROI in their engagement applications downstream.
And in terms of the return on investment, what are some of the ways that this more comprehensive and cohesive profile object can impact the lifetime value of a given customer, and some of the ways that you're able to think about measuring the investment or the impact of this more rich profile on the bottom line of the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest challenges that businesses face is there's data everywhere, but it is often unusable, not sitting in a usable format, and isn't really tapping into its full potential. And so Unify is really about getting all of this data from where it resides and bringing it together in one place. So one of the customers that's been relying heavily on Unify is CrossFit, very active community of fitness folks. I think we've all had this experience of somebody who's gotten really into CrossFit and can't stop raving about it. They had this huge amount of data and insights from their engaged fitness community, but it was siloed and disconnected. And so they describe Segment and Unify as giving them these data superpowers. So it gives their team this complete user profile and better personalized experiences. They're using it for virtual contests, providing local gym recommendations, so converting folks from top of funnel into joining their community, and then generally helping their customers get more fit through data, which I think is a really exciting prospect. MongoDB is another one, so modern B2B platform. They're using Profile Sync to get this better understanding of a really complex B2B journey from multiple stakeholders exploring the product down to a complex implementation cycle. And so they use Segment Unify and Profile Sync as the foundation for their data strategy. They're joining in 181 additional tables in their data warehouse to really complete the profile and provide all of the dimensions of their accounts and user profiles. So really gives you a sense for the type of scale and data coverage that's required to really understand these complex sales cycles and be able to deliver the right message at the right time for an account.
And as far as the actual day-to-day business aspects of how different members of the team, whether in data or business operations or marketing or sales, et cetera, what is the impact on their lives of having this customer profile and some of the ways that they are able to kind of interact with it, both in terms of pulling data into their systems and being able to simplify the availability of information for their own needs, but also being able to provide feedback or requests on ways to evolve the profile, additional attributes to include, corrections on attributes that are incorrect, things like that?
I think one of the huge wins is just being able to bring in a lot of different sources and build a complete view. So one of our retail customers is using reverse ETL to send enriched data from their warehouse marketing destinations. But this retailer, like they've instrumented Segment for their website. They can track e-commerce traffic pretty easily with Segment. They have been for a while. But they also now, with reverse ETL and profile sync, they want to add offline retail traffic. So things like you go into the store and you buy a product and you check out, and then really marry it to this complete view of the customers. This is a super hard problem before, because often these things rely on they come in different data stores. Offline processing is usually stored in a completely different upstream system. and there's no common link between the customer records you have there and the ones that you might be tracking through Segment. So with reverse ETL, our customers are able to bring in that offline traffic, use profile sync tables and join it against the identifiers we're using in Segment, and then actually send in that offline traffic into Segment, where now they have this like complete view of the customer. They can customize email marketing campaigns and send emails to folks based on projects they purchase both online and in the store. So I think this has been a huge net add to our data teams, where it makes it really easy to bring these two very disparate sets together, and then also to marketers, where now their targeting is better because they know what folks are doing on their website, in the store. Really speaks to me. I think I do a lot of online shopping and would love to have a more personalized view across the board.
And digging now into the implementation of the Unify product, I'm wondering if you can just start by giving an overview about the architecture and some of the adjustments that you had to make to the existing Segment kind of technical platform to be able to integrate and provide this Unify feature.
I think that there are a couple of really interesting technical challenges the team went through. So for profile sync, really it was around driving these real time profiles, and then how do we make these managing profiles at scale for customers. So our managed customers can easily have over 100 million profiles. Each of these profiles, in addition to having all of the traits, also have the full history of events of every single customer going through, and we're tracking all of that. So our identity resolution system needs to be able to keep all these profile records up to date in real time. Whenever a new customer comes in, they need to be able to match it, do the merge on the identity graph, and then do this within seconds of a person hitting a button on a website. And then profile sync, really one of the big technical challenges, like how do we make this work out of the box? Our customers we had a very alpha product where we were syncing profile tables just kind of as is to customers. And a lot of the feedback around was like, hey, it's really hard to query these tables. It's very slow to work with my profiles if I have like 100 million profiles. So a lot of the innovation around profile sync is like, okay, great. Well, how do we make these queries work really easily for folks so that it's really performant across your entire swath? So we paired up with our best data engineer at Segment to design products for our customers, data engineers, and thought very deeply on like, what is the ideal table structure? What are the ways that, should we materialize these tables in Segment? Should we have customers do the materialization? How do we optimize both our materialization strategy as well as the tables themselves for fast performing queries across these giant amounts of profile data? And then how do we make that really easy for your data engineers? So we provide scripts for materialization with dbt, and we'll provide some scripts for materialization with other tools too.
And as far as the implementation, what are some of the technical issues that you had to address while developing and launching this product?
I think another maybe interesting story here is around on the reverse ETL side. We really was important for us to protect our customers' data privacy. And so we thought a lot about, okay, great, what is the best design for our customers that preserves privacy and is really performant and efficient too? So, one of the technical considerations was like, hey, should we copy query results into an S3 bucket and then do the diffing kind of within that bucket, which we thought was maybe slow or efficient or maybe expensive? Or is there a way for us to innovate here and do some in-warehouse incremental diffing basically takes a checksum operation on the customer's data model in their warehouse and figures out, hey, these are the changes that we then need to sync downstream to Segment. So on the technical side, we really wanted to optimize on a less compute intensive, more space efficient approach here. And I think the other win is that we don't ingest data unnecessarily, which is a big win, I think, for our customers' data privacy side too.
And as far as the adoption path for somebody, what are the steps involved in being able to onboard onto the Segment Unify product? Do they already need to be a Segment customer to take advantage of it? And within the overall Segment product suite, what are some of the hard dependencies to be able to implement Segment Unify within an organization?
Yeah, if you are already a Segment Connections or Profiles customer, this is super easy, right? So if you're already using Segment Connections, Reverse ETL is embedded into the Connections part of the Segment app. So you can just find it, set up a source and destination, try it out. You can probably get started in about 15 minutes to send Reverse ETL to your first destination. If you are using Segment for identity resolution already, then setting up profile sync is also fairly simple. Go in the Segment app. We also have an API to let you do this programmatically. Put in your warehouse credentials, and we'll start syncing profile sync data hourly to your warehouse. And then from there, there's once you have the tables, we do a backfill of your historical records. So we make sure you have your complete, all the events and trades over time. Usually that takes like days, maybe a couple weeks, I think is our official SLA. And I don't know if I was supposed to share that. It's okay. And then from there, you'll have all these tables now landed in your warehouse. We also offer a DBT materialization script. So if you have DBT, you can just run this script. It'll start materializing profile traits tables and complete, customer records. So we'll create a new table of a materialized view of your customer in your warehouse after running that. And then you have the data and you can start, enriching it, joining it, playing around with it directly in with your warehouse tools.
And talking through the kind of reverse ETL aspects of it, what is the workflow for being able to move from implementing Unify, building out these profile objects, to then propagating those objects into some of the, I don't know whether to call it downstream or upstream tools since it's a bit cyclical, but some of the other systems that the business uses to be able to track these different customers through their life cycle?
I think that's a really good way of describing it, as cyclical, right? It's not one direction. Data is now flowing bidirectionally from data warehouses into CDP, CDP into data warehouses, from data sources and destinations back into CDP, and vice versa. And so it really does create this virtuous cycle of data building on itself, these golden profiles continuing to get richer and richer. I think your question is a really good one, which is how do you think about profile sync across the stack? So how do you think about one digital representation that needs to now be ported into potentially tens, hundreds of different APIs, different tools with different data models? Each one has been designed independent of one another. And I think this is really the foundation of what we've built with CDP, is the ability to really deeply understand what is the essence of how this tool defines a customer, and then how do you appropriately map data from this golden record into that tool. And just to give you a sense for the ways in which we can do this now, we can sync a golden profile via an audience in batch. We can sync a profile via a patch change stream, so constant updates to the profile. We can sync a profile as an event. We can also run a little bit of arbitrary JavaScript that our customers can input with functions. And so there's really this growing set of ways in which golden profiles can be synced across the stack. It is a hard problem, and that's very much why we've taken this approach of smart defaults, but extensibility baked in as our core philosophy. we want to be able to provide the best understanding of how golden profiles should map across your stack. But to the extent that you want to customize or extend that, we give you fine-grained controls to do so.
And then for the identity resolution element of this problem, where you do have information coming from multiple sources, you're trying to aggregate it into this golden profile. What are some of the challenges that you face in being able to accurately merge together different data sources into this one entity, as well as some of the toggles that are available for businesses that want to manage the level of confidence that is required before performing that merge operation, or being able to include a human in the loop in terms of reviewing, we want to merge these two things together, does this look right, and being able to feed that back into the ongoing operation of the Unify platform?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of the fundamental insights that we've had, is that every customer, every business really has their own unique identity graph that is relevant for their business. It's dependent on how they've implemented tens of different systems, from their CRM to their tracking code in their on their website or in their mobile apps. And so there really is the need for one, configurability and flexibility, but also the ability to understand how these different identifiers are coming together to develop these golden profiles. And so we provide a set of configurations where customers can define their identity resolution logic. This has been trained on billions and billions of events. And so we are able to detect when issues may be arising, surface those up to customers for review, and provide observability as part of our platform to really give our customers confidence and understanding into how their identity graph is working, how it's evolving, and ways in which they may want to adapt or adjust their identity resolution logic given the signals that we're seeing.
I think the other interesting use case we've seen for profile sync is, like, usually the first use case that folks implement is they try to trace a customer through a series of merges. They're trying to understand how our identity graph performs those merges, and to give themselves more observability into the way that segment identity resolution process works, which we love because it's boosting trust in, it's boosting customer trust in our system. It's helping them with the understanding of how to join the data together. And it's so we're no longer just this like black box where identity resolution is happening, you get some outputs out. It's really bringing customers a lot more observability into what's happening in that box, and giving them opportunities now to even change things, change the identity resolution, change their rules that they have in segment, and do adjustments even downstream too.
And for the kind of entity resolution aspect of it, it's one of the perennial problems in computer science, but in data in particular, is kind of understanding what are those kind of combinations that are valid. But another interesting angle to this, particularly in an analytical context, is the semantic elements of what to merge and how, and whether there are additional computations or derivations or enrichments that need to happen in that merge path. And I'm curious how you've addressed that in the Unify product, to be able to say, okay, these are the same entities and these are the attributes, but in the actual representation, we want this attribute to be rendered differently, whether it's, formatting the address or understanding which address is more up to date and accurate, or particularly for things like purchases, what does it mean for a purchase to actually be completed? Like, do you have to have it in a holding stage for a little while to determine whether or not they issue a return, etc., and some of those business rules around the entity resolution and attribute merging process?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And I think one of the hard challenges that many businesses face as they try to build their own identity resolution logic and profile systems. I think one of the things that we benefit from here, just in terms of the overall approach that we've taken, is one is a very clearly defined spec around data inputs. And so we really do have a set of well-defined scope for who a user is and what they are doing in relation to your business. This includes those specific raw trait fields, things like address and phone number, which can be structured appropriately. The other thing, which is, I think, really hits at the heart of your question, is defining a semantic layer in abstraction is very hard, but doing it in relation to a specific use case and a specific tool provides clarity. And so by connecting golden profiles with a particular tool, we are then able to infer and define the profile as required for that specific use case. And so it really is about both the inputs, the resolution logic itself, as well as the end and terminal use case for the profile that allows us to understand what is the right representation of this profile, how should that be mapped into that end tool, and how is it ultimately going to unlock business value that a marketer or a support agent needs to really be able to deliver on that customer experience that they're looking to deliver on.
And then as far as the semantic attributes and the business rules to kind of compute and derive them, as you are pushing these profiles back out into the other systems, so things like HubSpot, MailChimp, what have you, Salesforce, what are some of the challenges that you have to address in terms of understanding kind of which attributes to overwrite versus which attributes to append to, et cetera. And also, because not every platform is going to have all of the same fields, how you address some of the challenges of regression to the mean, where everything has to just have a baseline set of attributes. And if you want to get more sophisticated, then you start to get diminishing returns because, oh, well, I created this new attribute on this user, but I can't push that into HubSpot. I can only push it into Salesforce and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a really hard challenge that businesses face. So there are over 10,000 tools in the most recent MarTech landscape, right? That's 10,000 different APIs, data models, tools which have been defined and designed independent of one another. I think there are sort of two benefits and tailwinds here that we get to benefit from. The first is that given our size and scale, many of these tools and APIs and data models have looked to us and our spec for inspiration. So we actually provide our product as infrastructure for many of these MarTech tools, and they leverage us and look to us to take some of the load off their customers for event routing and now even reverse ETL capabilities. So we get to benefit from this because there's this growing catalog of tools that are essentially leveraging our data and our spec, and they get to benefit from it because they don't have to recreate the wheel, define all of this data infrastructure, have customers go through the implementation cycle specifically for their tool. So that's number one around some of the ecosystem dynamics that I think really help reduce the complexity of this problem. And then the second is really being focused on extensibility and portability of profiles. So I think this is unique relative to some of the other data tools or suites, which take this sort of data hoarding approach, the walled garden approach, trying to keep things largely within their ecosystem and playing nicely, but not really well when you try to use a tool outside of that ecosystem. So we provide a ton of flexibility into how these mapping layers occur between this golden profile and these tools. We have this set of capabilities called destination actions, which is essentially a layer of configuration, which allows a non-technical person, low code, no code, to actually get in there, deeply understand how data is being mapped in from the golden profile into a particular tool, and be able to configure that exactly as they expect. And so that level of transparency and observability and configuration is very much at the heart of our philosophy, which is it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution. Oftentimes, these tools are being implemented specifically for a team and a use case. And so we want to provide the ability to adapt this golden profile, this centralized understanding of who a user is, across an organization and apply it to a specific tool and a specific use case to really be able to unlock that business value.
Another aspect of the challenge around customer profiles, and particularly managing it across different tenants of the data ecosystem, is the modeling aspect of it, where, particularly when you're talking about things like master data management, golden records, there are things like dimensional modeling to be considered. How do I break this down into the different sets of tables, or do I just have one wide table with all of the attributes? What are the different data types that I should use? Do I want an array field, a JSON field? Should it all just be, basic data types? I'm curious how you've thought about those data modeling challenges, particularly as you want to support some of the historical attributes of a customer as they engage with a business over time, where maybe their address changes, but you still want to be able to see what their address was because you shipped a product to them at their old address and things like that.
I think on reverse CTL, like we've gotten a lot of customer feedback that, folks are doing this data modeling, this life cycle development in their warehouse. So they really want better support for what kind of data modeling their warehouse offers. So things like objects and array support, mapping JSON fields, arbitrary JSON fields that have, maybe a full set of locations listed for a customer, or addresses where they've previously lived. So that side, and then ways to better hook into that data modeling development lifecycle. So supporting test and prod environments for mapping data downstream, version control, testing out the different models and what gets synced. So, I think the reality is folks are not going to be doing a lot of this data modeling within Segment. They want to manage this in their warehouse. A lot of them are using Airflow for orchestration, dbt for transformation already. And our tools need to flexibly handle all the data models that the warehouse has, and then be able to very easily integrate with the ways that customers are using those tools already. That's the best, smoothest customer experience for our data engineers.
And now that the Unify product is out, you have made it generally available, people are using it. What are some of the most interesting or innovative or unexpected ways that you're seeing it applied?
I think one of our beta customers was a mid-size e-commerce retailer, and they got their hands on Profile Sync, and within a day or two, they had learned dbt, downloaded, gotten it running on their site. They built an attribution analysis, and they were starting to play with a user recommendation engine. So they built this use case over probably days of, if a customer hasn't purchased items in a year, they can now identify who those customers are. They never had that visibility before prior to Profile Sync, and then recommend maybe these 5 top items for those customers to come back into their store or e-commerce store to buy. And this was a small data team of a single data engineer. And they were able to unlock this use case within days. And I just really love this story because Unify is all about empowering small data teams, giving them the tools that they need to go toe-to-toe with these big tech players who have hundreds of data engineers, and making their lives and their jobs a lot easier.
And in the process of building this Unify feature and product, what are some of the most interesting or unexpected or challenging lessons that you've each learned in the process?
I have a couple insights. These are maybe a little bit more hot takes here, talking to our customers lately. So as tech budgets are tightening and our customers are focusing a lot more on efficiency, predicting we're going to see a consolidation of modern data stack tools. I mean, I think that might be inevitable. There's literally thousands of tools out there to manage your modern data stack, and VCs have pumped in a lot of funding during the hot tech days to really get these tools to a really exciting and large ecosystem of data tools. But I think as folks, focus on efficiency, they're going to start really looking do we really need, 2 tools that are kind of overlapping, doing the same thing? We're already kind of seeing that, we saw that recently, one of our Unify deals, a customer didn't have a marketing team. They loved segment identity resolution, but they're like, hey, I want to use Unify and just do identity resolution in Segment. I don't have a marketing team, so I don't really want to pay for the marketing products downstream. I just want to pay for Unify, and I'm going to take that extra money and boost up the amount of our connections event volume and really allow us to expand to a new geo because we can bring in customers now with that extra budget. And so I think we're seeing a bit of that consolidation and really inspecting both the number of tools and how they're being used currently in our customer base. And then as part of that consolidation, that a lot of that, I think, makes offering, we believe that reverse ETL is part of the CDP just fundamentally because the reverse ETL is about activating our customer profiles and bringing that data downstream. But also, it's also a huge win from the customer side because they can avoid the hassle of adding another vendor just for reverse ETL. They can get it if they're using Segment connections and profiles. It's really easy to integrate and just add reverse ETL and try it out within Segment. And completes your extensibility and activation story for the CDP. So, and then I think the other key piece of this is that the customer experience is going to start mattering a lot more. So as we focus on efficiency, the customers don't want to spend a ton of money like buying data tools and then standing up their own governance or observability tools to string these tools together and make them ready for prime time. They want the tools to work. They want to get started easily. And they, are just going to want this like smooth CX in between the tools so that they work great together.
Really well said. At the end of the day, what matters is the experiences that customers have with your product and your business. And I think we can often get caught up in, data architecture and data engineering problems, but at the end of the day, this is really servicing the business and the customer journey. And so the fastest path to provide that great experience is often the way in which you're going to learn the most and you're going to be able to deliver on customer expectations. So I think that's been one of the things that we've really heard from our customers is time to value is really important right now in this moment as everybody's facing challenges to their business. And so finding that fastest path is key.
And for people who are exploring the challenge and the available options for managing their customer profiles, what are the cases where a Segment Unify is the wrong choice?
Well, I think if you don't have a data warehouse, you won't be able to take advantage of these tools. It might be time to consider getting a data warehouse and adding it to your data stack. And then I think the second is if you are looking for, we see reverse ETL as a fundamental part of the CDP. Our reverse ETL solutions work great with event streaming, with our real-time customer profiles. If you're just looking for a point solution for reverse ETL to get data in and out of different warehouse tables, then Segment Unify probably isn't the right choice for you here. It'll get the job done to like move data from point A to point B, but I think you won't get the full value without the CDP side.
And as you continue to iterate on and improve the Unify product, what are some of the things you have planned for the near to medium term, or any particular projects or problem areas you're excited to dig into?
Really excited about our entities project this year. So entities is all around expanding the world of profiles, going beyond. So bringing in all the business objects surrounding the customer profile. So things like accounts, your households, your subscriptions, even your pets, and bringing that together into a full view, and then really allowing customers to easily marry that rich stateful representation with the real-time profiles that we already have in Segment, and bring it all together so that we can really drive these amazing, dreamy personalization campaigns that folks are really chasing. What are you most excited about, Kevin?
That's one of them for sure. And then I think there's also obviously a lot going on in the world of AI and large language models. And so really thinking about how do you bring context and fine tune those with relevant data within your business. I think that's going to be absolutely paramount. And so, I think that's something that's top of mind for many businesses and customers today, and something that we're investigating.
Are there any other aspects of the Segment Unify product and the overall space of the kind of golden profiles and entity resolution and reverse ETL that it enables that we didn't discuss yet that you'd like to cover before we close out the show?
I think one of the things that is just continuing to blow my mind is the pace of adoption here that we're seeing among our customer base, the excitement around these products and features. And so, I really do think that there is power at the intersection of real-time data and a lot of the investments that businesses have made over the years in their data warehouse strategy. And so bringing those two things together feels like we've really hit a chord and is really unlocking a ton of potential for businesses that has otherwise been latent.
All right. Well, for anybody who wants to get in touch with either of you and follow along with the work that you're doing, I'll have you add your preferred contact information to the show notes. And as the final question, I'd like to get each of your perspectives on what you see as being the biggest gap in the tooling or technology that's available for data management today.
Yeah, happy to lead off. So as I mentioned, AI, large language models, obviously very top of mind for folks. I think if you've played around with them, one of the things that you realize is that the experiences can be really powerful, but they are also largely generic. The context is lacking. And so I think one of the things that's top of mind is how do you fine tune these with customer context to get the most out of these large language models and co-pilots. And so that feels like a gap. I know a lot of different folks are exploring that today, but an unsolved problem that is really emerging as these AI and large language models grow in popularity.
I'm excited to see where we're going to go with the semantic layer, the modern data stack. So the semantic layer is about defining metrics, and it's kind of that missing link between the raw data and business meeting. Think about it as like kind of the Rosetta Stone for your business metrics. Metrics definitions to date locked up in analytics tools, spread out across all of your engagement applications. They're not shareable. So it's very hard to build these like the stream of cross-org engagement apps and experiences easily. Like, connecting if you are a support, agent and you're getting a lot of returns from a customer, entering them in automatically into a special, more handhold support experience or marketing experience so that you can kind of reduce the number of returns they're sending. I might be someone that falls into that bucket. And I think so building, one metrics layer that is both very flexible for however, you want to use them downstream, but has some shared artifacts so that your data engineers don't need to like recreate the same definition of a customer over and over again is really exciting. I think there's still a lot of opportunity in this space, and we're starting to see some early innovations with like DBT and Transform, but I think still searching for the right approach here within the modern data stack.
All right. Well, thank you both for taking the time today to join me and share the work that you've done on the Segment Unify product. It's definitely great to see that released and available for folks who are able to simplify the process of managing their customer profiles and enriching them and bringing them everywhere that they need them. So I appreciate all of the time and energy that you've put into that, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much for having us on.
Thank you. This was so fun.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to check out our other shows, Podcast.init, which covers the Python language, its community, and the innovative ways it is being used, and the Machine Learning Podcast, which helps you go from idea to production with machine learning. Visit the site at dataengineeringpodcast.com to subscribe to the show, sign up for the mailing list, and read the show notes. And if you've learned something or tried out a project from the show, then tell us about it. Email hosts at dataengineeringpodcast.com with your story. And to help other people find the show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends and coworkers.